This is absolutely getting insane. Donald Trump just had a phone interview with NBC, and what he said both makes me worried about hyperinflation and World War III. I don't know how you could achieve that in one frickin' phone call. Now, on the other hand, there are going to be a lot of people who leave comments, well, this sounds like TDS to me. I'm like, man, yeah, it seems like just reading facts about what Donald Trump is doing or saying is now causing people to allege people have been diagnosed with Trump derangement syndrome. They say anything about, oh, maybe Elon Musk's wall of receipts isn't the wall of receipts he promised it was. Oh, that's Elon derangement syndrome. Okay, well, to me, this seems pretty deranged. President Trump said he couldn't care less if automakers raise prices in response to planned tariffs on auto imports in a phone interview with NBC. And there's more that he said, which blows my mind, but I want you to listen to this and then I want to respond to these because to me, this is insane and it's scary because what we're actually starting to see is more than just a negotiation on tariffs or the Russia-Ukraine war. What we're starting to see is a lash out. But we have to remember that on one hand, while we hope the lash out is a negotiation to give us an edge, the reality is a lash out can also promote or prompt a lash out on the other side. Consider Canada's response to us with, hey, they're trying to break us so they can buy us. That's leading Canadians across the country to do whatever they can to avoid American products when they can. Some things like produce and that they have to import from the United States. And I understand people are like, oh, but we didn't have free trade before. We mostly did. The USMCA mostly gave us free trade with the exception of certain items above and beyond certain quotas for things like poultry or eggs or milk so that they could somewhat support their own farmers as well and their own infrastructure as well to some extent beyond certain quotas. Now, look, I'm a free trade buff. I'm a big fan of free trade. But I'm telling you, some of these things that are going on are way, way, way beyond negotiating. Just listen to the phraseology of this, and I want you to think about how Donald Trump is going to respond with this commentary. So, in other words, you're going to hear from the phone interview how Donald Trump feels. Think about how Donald Trump is going to respond after this now, right? But I also want you to think about how Putin's going to respond. This, to me, makes me nervous. Listen to this.
Just hours ago, President Trump called me to tell me he is, quote, pissed off with Russia's President Putin and threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russia's oil. Quote, if Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and if I think it was Russia's fault, which it might not be, but if I think it was Russia's fault, I am going to put secondary tariffs on all oil coming out of Russia.
Okay, hold on a second. This is so critically important. Donald Trump just imposed secondary tariffs, if you will, on any country that imports oil from Venezuela. It's basically a way of saying that we're not going to buy Venezuelan oil without massive tariffs, but it's also a way of saying we will punish anybody who trades with Venezuela. Secondary tariffs on Russia could mean we will impose tariffs on anybody who trades with Russia. Well, who trades with Russia when it comes to oil? North Korea, Iran, China, and the Saudis as well. The Saudis produce a lot of their own, but there's some involvement there. So they're probably more neutral, less important in this regard here. But just yesterday, we were talking about the promotion of these alliances that are truly anti-American alliances. China called us the enemy yesterday. They said by giving us control of the Panama Canal or even part control, China is handing a knife to the enemy. China has called us their enemy. Russia doesn't see us as an ally. North Korea doesn't see us as an ally. The state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, doesn't see us as an ally. This is what they now call the CRINK alliance. It's always something else. First there's BRICS, now there's CRINK. By the way, the reason for that is the military alliance will be CRINK. BRICS is more of a currency alliance. South Africa ain't going to war anytime soon, okay? At least I don't think so. And Brazil probably not either. They make great planes. Anyway, a shout out to Embraer. Look, the problem here is these secondary tariffs. If Donald Trump takes this same stance that he has on Venezuela, on Russia, now what he's actually going to do is start sanctioning or tariffing with secondary tariffs China and North Korea. Okay, not a big deal there, and Iran, not a big deal there, but China. That's a big deal because wait a minute, we're supposed to be having positive trade discussions with China, which means not only the existing tariffs we have, but even more on China because of the Russian oil trade. All right. Now this is interesting because Donald Trump still hasn't figured out who actually started the war. Donald Trump still hasn't figured out what he believes. Now, everybody has a different opinion on this. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but then again, everybody's got their opinions on this. Well, Russia comes in and takes Crimea, but that was Russian land first. And then people say, the Donbass, that was Russian land anyway, and the Ukrainians were trying to apply for NATO membership, and Russia didn't want that. And then on the other side, you have people saying Russia is just, Vladimir Putin, or led by Vladimir Putin, a dictator who, what does he want? He wants more oil and energy reserves for himself. So what does he do? Attacks Ukraine, tries to strike deep into Kiev, but that's not the goal anyway. The goal is taking control of the Donbass region where 90% of the energy infrastructure for Ukraine is. So this whole idea that Donald Trump wants to create an energy deal with Ukraine and a minerals deal is kind of entertaining anyway, because if, as part of that deal, Russia gets that eastern flank, which is what they want, they get most of the energy anyway. So there are actually people who write on social media, and I don't understand if they're robots or if they just have mental issues, but there are actually people who write on social media, Donald Trump never said he would end the war within 48 hours. Yes, let me say that again. There are people who said Donald Trump never said he would end the war within 48 hours. Literally, we have seen clip after clip after clip of this. I'm going to pull some up right now. But he told us, I will end the war within 24 hours. In fact, I will probably end it before I even become president if I get elected. Here's just one clip. By the way, if any of this makes you nervous enough to just diversify away from markets and get a little bit of yield from real estate, we've got about $60 to $70 million of assets that we get yield from. It's called real estate, American multifamily and single family housing and markets that are insulated from having been overbuilt. And if you'd like to invest, we have an accredited and non-accredited round going on at househack.com. You get 100% of the upside. So if our stock value goes up from $1.40, which is low, because we're a small company, we're a little startup, right? We're very grateful for the valuation that we have, that we're, basically a $100 million company at 1.4 times book. But you get 100% of the upside of this stock. So as we grow, you get all the upside. Until you get converted to stock, you get 5% paid to you per year, and we pay you on a monthly basis, so you get cash that shows up to you during a crazy time. And we do all the real estate work for you. The buy, the fix, the build, the manage, everything. You can go to househack.com to see if you want to invest. You could see the properties that we have on the website. You could see some of the financials that we've got on our website, detailed financial summaries. You could see it all here on the website. You could look at the before and afters and look at some of the work that we do to try to clean up properties and to make homes livable again. Because that's what we do. We actually take properties that are unlivable and we provide livable homes to people. So we actually add rental supply to markets and help people go from, look at this place. You can't live in this. The ceiling's a disaster because the roof is damaged. You've got damage over here around the windows, and this is terrible. And then you look at what we were able to turn it into. It's absolutely beautiful. So if that's something you want to invest in as we scale the company, check out househack.com. Our fundraise just started just about 8 days ago now, and we're blown away with the amount of investments that we're already at. Multiple seven figures. It's just pretty incredible. So thank you so much. Househack.com.
That I could do so much. I'll give you an example. When I said I could fix this war in Ukraine in 24 hours, but you can only do it from the presidential seat. You can't do it. Let's say he sent me over as an emissary. You can't do it. You have to be in that position.
You have to be the guy.
I would fix that within 24 hours. And if I win, before I get into the office, I will have that war settled. 100% sure.
Okay. Now, Donald Trump is walking that back, and he's literally saying, I was being sarcastic. That don't look sarcastic. It looks like you were wrong. So, it's not just this though, folks. It's not just this. We have to go back to what we just started with wait a second. We have this post that we have to go through, which also came out from this reporting. This idea that he couldn't care less is a way of giving Americans the you know what about inflation, or frankly stagflation. He is giving markets a license to say, go ahead, price in stagflation, see if I care. This is insane. I don't think I've ever seen somebody before say, I don't care if prices go up. I don't care if more Americans get screwed. Then, of course, when it comes to the Walls discussion about firing them for the Houthi PC small group signal leak, there was talk about firing Walls. Donald Trump is like, oh, I don't know, should I fire him? And then other people are like, I don't know, maybe you should. Like JD Vance is like, maybe you should fire him. And other people are like, nah, man, it's all just fake news anyway. You shouldn't fire him and bend to the liberal media. I mean, everybody kind of thinks the signal leak was a big problem, but doesn't look like he's going to get fired. And then take a look at this. Donald Trump reiterated that he seeks to annex Greenland. While there is a, quote, good possibility that U.S. could do so without using military force, he said he wouldn't take any option off the table. So now all of a sudden, we're thinking about going to war with Greenland, potentially. Like, that option is on the table. Okay. That's odd to me. Now, of course, we can take the very optimistic POV of that and say, oh, okay, well, you know, we'll be able to buy Greenland somehow because obviously the Greenlanders want to be Americans. But then, of course, you have the story from the Independent, which argues differently, that U.S. officials went door to door in Greenland to find anybody that wanted to be visited by the Vances, specifically J.D. Vance's wife, and nobody wanted to accept her. So they had to cancel meetings that they had with groups that wanted to host J.D. Vance's wife because they didn't appreciate what J.D. Vance stood for. It's not because they necessarily hate J.D. Vance's wife. I mean, what is she really doing? I don't know. It's because they hate what they stand for. This idea that, oh, the Americans are coming to tell you that forget your heritage, forget your culture, you're now going to be American, and we're not going to take military force off the table to make that a possibility. While all this, at the same time, the more this happens, the more Putin says, I'm going to put more troops in the polar Arctic because, you see what's happening with Trump. And so, on some hand, it's like, do we really think Trump is going to strong-arm Putin? I mean, maybe a lot of people think Putin's just going to get strong-armed. I don't know. I mean, hopefully we can end the war at some point, but let's listen to the rest of this.
Mr. Trump said 25% tariffs on Russian oil could happen any moment and told me he plans to speak with President Putin this week. The president told me, quote, I was very angry, pissed off when Putin started getting into Zelensky's credibility and started talking about new leadership in Ukraine. Just hours ago, President Trump...
Yeah, okay, so this is interesting because it feels like, to some extent, Donald Trump is now flipping back towards, Zelensky's actually my friend. It's not actually Putin that's my friend. Well, no, duh! Putin's not our friend. We already knew that. And then, of course, what just happened in the Oval Office was a complete disaster. There are a lot of people, though, that say, like, hey, Zelensky, needed to get a taste of his own medicine. But on the flip side, it's just not a good look. No matter where you stand on whether you like Zelensky or not, what happened in the Oval Office was basically a dream scenario for Putin. By the way, here's that, talk about Trump orders global oil terminals to leave Venezuela. The Trump administration has ordered trading companies to leave Venezuela. They're also, increasing their sanctions on Venezuela. I just wanted you to see this as well. Trump secondary Venezuela oil tariffs offer novel take on sanctions. So this is, the reason we look at this is because it's sort of a way of seeing what could happen to other countries like Russia. Donald Trump threatened to impose 25% tariffs on any country that purchases oil from Venezuela. And then, Venezuela has been very hostile to the United States and the freedoms we espouse. Therefore, any country that purchases oil or gas from Venezuela will be forced to pay a 25% tariff to the United States on any trade they do with the country. And then here it is. As part of Trump's plan, whitehouse.gov, imposition of tariffs on or after April 2nd, a 25% tariff may be imposed on any goods imported into the United States from any country that imports Venezuelan oil. So this is just an example of a secondary tariff where so like, we don't want you doing business with them, and if you do, we'll tariff you even more. Imagine this is now China, right? We are going to impose a 25% tariff on any country that imports oil from Russia. Well, now China gets 25% on top of all of the other tariffs that Donald Trump is threatening. To me, so far what I've said, and this is where I just need your help with the diagnosis. To me, so far what I've said is not deranged as a person looking in from the outside. It's actually almost studying derangement. Like this is the I don't know how this is going to turn out. This idea that this is all just part of the negotiation to make things better. I don't know, man. It feels like we're just pissing everyone off, and including telling our own Americans that we don't care if prices go up. I get it. There's this thesis that, okay, we're going to rebuild this economy, but I don't think you rebuild an economy by burning it to the ground. So I'm pretty nervous about that. I don't know what it all means going forward. But then again, maybe I'm missing something here, because so far the educated comments that I get that disagree with what I'm saying don't exist. Usually the comments are, TDS is real with this one. Unsubbing, just like, oh, Kevin, you just hate Donald Trump. No. I want free trade. I want the war to end. I want better schools. We want normal things. We want crime to be punished. I think any reasonable person wants that. This idea that, you're either MAGA or a libtard is crazy. There are also just normal Americans who want reasonable things. But so far, what I'm seeing makes me nervous that we're, potentially in a position of let's start a war with Greenland. Let's actually make the situation with Russia worse. Let's make a country that has a massive GDP, the number 2 GDP in the world, who's actually stimulating their economy while ours is, falling into the hole. Let's piss them off by tariffing their Russian oil imports, after they called us that enemy, China. At the same time, let's tell our Americans we don't care if your prices go up. And, oh well. Now I get it, there's this argument, we'll just buy American, bro. Well, even if you buy a Tesla, you still have 35 to 45% of the vehicle components manufactured outside of the world, outside of the United States. Yeah, because starting May 2nd, all these dates keep changing, but starting May 2nd, that's when you get the component tariffs. So they got to figure out how many, what percentage of each vehicle is made somewhere else. It's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.